Qing Prose Chinese New Year. It's the Chinese New Year, and Mother Wang is particularly excited. The backs of her hands were red and swollen, with frostbite festering in some places and dripping with blood. However, she was still clenching her teeth, washing the sheets and cleaning the windows, and was very busy. I said, "It's so cold. Why are you so busy?" She smiled and replied, "It's Chinese New Year, so I have to tidy up." My heart felt like it had been stabbed by her, and it stung uncomfortably. It's Chinese New Year. I know it's coming. But what does this year's Chinese New Year mean to me? Living alone in this deserted room, without a mother, without a child, without a husband. I said, "Mother Wang, I am not celebrating the Chinese New Year this year. You can go back for a few days and reunite with your family." Her eyes suddenly shone with joy, but she still pretended to be concerned and asked, "What about your food? Let's go to a restaurant to eat." I replied cheerfully, "Really? You don't have anything good to eat all year round during the Chinese New Year. It's okay to just go to a restaurant for a few meals." As she said this, she rolled her eyes and almost laughed, although his face was still serious, as if he was planning for me. I looked at her and smiled, and she smiled too. Suddenly, something came to her mind, and all the joyful brilliance in her eyes disappeared. She stared at me melancholy, and after a long while, she whispered in a firm voice, "Of course I am spending the New Year here in a difficult way. Where can I go home?" I know what she means. She refuses to give up the New Year's Day reward. So I told her that it was fine if she wanted to stay here, but she was not allowed to mention the word New Year again from now on. I responded inexplicably. The next day, when I was just having breakfast, she staggered in and said to me at the beginning, "It's Chinese New Year." But I got furious and said, "What the hell did the postman do to me? I don't allow you to say New Year's Eve." But she was calm and answered confidently, "Celebrating the New Year is not what I said. That was what the postman asked me to say. He said it was Chinese New Year and wanted money for drinks." I threw $2 to her and quickly covered it up. Oh nears. In the afternoon, when I came back from outside, she poured me tea and said in a low voice, "The alley sweeper just came here." He said. He quickly waved his hand to stop her from talking, took out 5 yuan from his wallet, and picked up the teacup. She looked at the banknotes but did not reach out to take them. She just stammered, "This Chinese New Year, other people gave me 10 yuan." With a slap, I dropped the teacup to the ground. Vegetable juice splashed on her shoes, socks, and trousers. She said with a sad face, "I said it right again. My memory is really bad." From then on, she never talked about the New Year again, but I still had to pay for my living expenses. Every time she stood in front of me with a sad face, I would take out $2. She would not reach out to take the bill while looking at it, so I would exchange it for a $5 one. As soon as she fell, she turned around and ignored her. My relatives and friends all came to invite me to have New Year's Eve dinner, and I agreed to them all. On New Year's Eve, I fell asleep after lunch, pretended to be sick, and declined all calls in person. One ma tittied up this way and that. I closed my eyes in anger and refused to look at her. After a while, I really fell asleep, and I didn't wake up until dusk. When I opened my eyes, I saw how neatly and beautifully Mrs. Wang had tittied my room that day, making it look like a new year. I thought no one would bother me at this time, so I put on my clothes and got ready to get out of bed. Suddenly I heard a conversation at the head of the stairs, and then someone came up lightly. I held my breath and listened outside the door. I knew it was Wang Ma, so I held my breath inside. Ignore her. Wang Ma listened for a long time, and when she saw that I didn't move, she quietly walked downstairs. I simply took off my clothes and got into bed again. I only heard a bang, which was the sound of the back door closing. I knew that the person who came had gone, and I couldn't help but take a deep breath. Then, everything was silent. My heart is very calm as the lake water when there is no wind, and it is vast. It was a blur, and I began to feel lonely. After being lonely for a long time, I began to hope that someone would come, invite me to a New Year's Eve dinner, or even ask for money for drinks. However, at this time, the people asking for money seemed to be having New Year's Eve dinner too. Look, there are thousands of lights outside. Under these lights, They are all father and son, husband and wife, reunited. My room was dark, with only a few rays of pale yellow light coming in from outside, illuminating the furnishings in front of the window. And the bed was so blurry that I couldn't see anything anymore. A room that is too neatly tidied makes it look empty and cold. But what is emptier and calmer is still my lonely heart, which is frozen, almost to the point of trembling. I think, at this time, I need someone to talk to me, to talk about daily routines, household routines that I usually find boring. So I thought of Mother Wang. I think Mother Wang might be listening quietly at the door of the room at this time. When she hears me waking up, she will stumble in. I turned the light switch, and the room suddenly became bright. But Wang Ma did not come in. I was a little disappointed, so I had to put on my clothes and sit up, coughing a few times on purpose. But Mother Wang still didn't come in. At that time, I suddenly panicked. What if Wang Ma secretly goes back to reunite with his family? So I jumped out of bed without even having time to put on my socks. I dragged my slippers on and ran out. I ran out of the room and yelled at the top of the stairs, "Wang Ma! Wang Ma!" As expected, Wang Ma did not agree. When I felt sour, my legs became weak, and I almost fell down the stairs. There was something weird in my throat, as if something was blocking it, and I couldn't scream anymore. Am I really the only one in this room? The only one in this house? The only one in this world? How can I survive being so alone? I want to cry. I ran back to the room with my slippers and sat on the edge of the bed, ready to cry. However, I cried and cried, but the tears refused to come down. This really made me helpless. Fortunately, the door opened and someone came in carrying a plate. The person who came in was Wang Ma. I jumped for joy. At that time, the tears also joined in and flowed down, like beads on a broken string. I didn't have time to wipe it away, so I jumped up behind Wang Ma, grabbed her shoulders and shouted, "Wang Ma! Wang Ma!" Wang Ma hurriedly put down the plate and replied tremblingly, I just took a nap. I came too late. No, I patted her shoulder and explained, "You came just in time. You came just in time." She seemed to be surprised and looked at my face blankly. I suddenly remembered that my tears had not been wiped dry, so I reached out to grab a piece of chicken from the plate and brought it to my mouth. While chewing, I wiped my mouth with a towel and wiped away my tears. Wang Ma told me that the chicken was sent by my aunt. I was asleep when it was delivered, and the messenger went back quietly. I nodded. Wang Ma said it smoothly and said, "There are also glutinous rice dumplings. It's Chinese New Year." At this point, she immediately remembered my order and quickly shrank. With a sad face, I patted her shoulder without getting angry, and she boldly asked me if I wanted to cook the dumplings and eat them. I thought for a while and said, "Okay," and asked her to bring another pair of chopsticks. Not long after, she came with a large bowl of steaming dumplings and placed it in front of me. But the pair of chopsticks she brought was still in one of her hands, with no place to put them. So I said to her, "Wang Ma, put the pair of chopsticks in Jia Shouyang. Come and eat with me." Also, I took out $100 bill and stuffed it into her other hand and said, "This is the money I'm giving you for the new year." She opened her mouth wide and was speechless for a long time. She was holding chopsticks in one hand and banknotes in the other, trembling slightly. I said, "Mother Wang, let's eat glutinous rice balls and let's talk about celebrating the new year." Her eyes suddenly shone with joy, but she still staggered more and did not dare to sit down. Suddenly asked, she saw my bare feet sucking on the slippers, then stumbled over, found the socks and handed them to me, saying, "You have to put on the socks first. Be careful not to get cold for ears." She said the word "celebrate the new year" in a long tone, and her face no longer looked sad. I also felt that the room was no longer wet, empty and calm, so we celebrated the new year while chatting and laughing.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.